What was we covered a little bit of this backstage. What was the catalyst for picking up the course? You and I are of the same generation, and there was so much information that was presented that another generation didn't have. You could have picked
Hmm.
up books on Zen. You could have picked up, and you probably did. Um, you could have yoga could have been your path. Buddhism could have been your path. What was it about the course that you
It
said
just
this?
kept, yeah, it just kept drawing me back. And then, of all things, this is why I say in the 90s, when my son was born in 93, I was taking them to a church. It was a Methodist church of all things, but I love the pastor. It was more of an open-minded Methodist church. And this little guy who looked like George Burns, he looked identical to him, introduced himself. He was a retired minister, and the pastor introduced him and said, "This man's going to be teaching A Course in Miracles here."
Wow.
And he didn't rewrite it. He wrote what I call a baby course. He was a retired minister, and he wrote it in a language that was very understandable. But it wasn't that, Eric. He was just you just felt not judged in his presence. You could see the love in him, the light. It was the way he you just felt a warm embrace in his presence, just beautifully. If there was ever another Jesus, that was him.
Wow.
And that's what brought me back to the course, was a person who, in a Methodist church, who decided to do A Course in Miracles.
I absolutely love yoga. I've meditated forever, and I've been to lots of Buddhist retreats. Uh, Nothing has transformed me in the way that the course has. Nothing
Mm,
has transformed me as practicing forgiveness moment by moment, because I don't have a yoga practice that says do this now.
mhm,
I don't have a Buddhist practice that says do this immediately and you will get peace. They're
mhm.
very they're wonderful paths, and if someone's called for them, I would never try to dissuade anyone. But with the course, it was okay. You have this tool at your disposal in this moment, and you can feel better right now. Not just better, you can be awakened. And I always tell people that in the moment when I'm forgiving, I am as enlightened as an awakened as I'm ever going to be. Now, of course, I might have to read that for the duration of my life, but that's one moment of peace. And a moment of peace really contains an infinite
Mm,
peace.
mhm.
All I need is that moment.
Exactly. Well, and that's a beautiful way to put it. I really appreciate that. And I told you I was going on a retreat, and this retreat was based on A Course in Miracles, but it's called Choose Again. And the only thing the guy Diedrich Walzig teaches in there is that the only thing that's ever gone wrong is you forgot. So the process of forgiveness is done with all your upsets. Is that you never needed to forgive your brother. You needed to forgive yourself for believing. For example, tumultuous childhood, right? I made that mean that I'm bad, that there's something wrong with me, that I'm unwanted. And I didn't recognize as a small child that I created the belief based on what was going on physically to me. So I made those things mean something about me, and it had nothing to do with me, but I didn't know that. No child does. And what I didn't know is I carried those through my whole life, and ego evidence would appear. This person's mistreating me, which is showing me um, that I still believe I deserve to be punished, for example. I'm so unworthy and I'm such a piece of trash that I deserve to be treated this way. That was my belief, not what somebody else was doing.
Right.
It was manifesting itself in my life until I kept working with my own beliefs and forgiving those and choosing again.
It's
Yeah.
almost like we're going through life saying, I knew it. You see?
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew I was a piece of trash. And you just proved it to me. Or
Right.
and and of course we we don't want to admit it to the other person, so then we become very aggressive to whoever it was who made us feel that way. And all the while inside, we're literally saying, I knew. They just confirmed exactly what I knew I
Mm,
was.
right. So I love your that you have to remember 1,000 times or whatever. But that's the practice, right? I mean, isn't that for me? That's the practice. When I've gone astray, when I'm upset, I recognize I've lost peace. The reason I've lost peace is I'm believing something. And my job is to, with Holy Spirit's help, like the prayer asks us to do, to extend love. And as long as I have a block from love, then I can't extend love. So what's my job is to clear away whatever belief I have that something's gone wrong. What if I can see it differently, like this chapter 30 asks, that we were going to talk about the rules for decision. Um, I don't have to rely on self anymore. I have a creator that will show me what to do, what to say, and to whom.
What a huge relief, too. And what a beautiful way of navigating through life.
Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes that the part of me that wants to be right will take over, and it takes me a minute to see that that's all I'm doing is wanting to be right again.
Right. So, Lisa,
So,
would I be mistaken to say that um, because of your childhood, because of your wounds and your trauma, you self-medicated? Was that your beginning with alcohol?
oh yeah, it didn't begin with alcohol. It began with uh, food, looking for something to soothe myself, and then it went to do you. I'm sure that you remember Spirograph.
Right.
The game Spirograph where you draw in it, and I would do that for hours and do it perfectly. It manifested itself through it. Then I became very good on the guitar, and I was like listening to guitar like Stairway to Heaven until I had it exactly perfect. It manifested itself like that. And then my mom introduced me to Darvon and alcohol when I was 9. And I remember that sensation going, oh, I feel so much better. Like it was a relief. And that's where it started. Not consciously, but by 13, I was already drinking alcohol. Yes.
You
To
know,
medicate.
I had a similar feeling both with uh, marijuana and with alcohol. The first few encounters, it was almost like a sigh saying, "So this is what I'm supposed to feel like. This is the
Yeah.
confidence that I'm supposed to have that I don't." Um, and this is how people are supposed to relate to me because all of a sudden um, I was funnier. I I was, you know, or at least I thought more charming. I had more confidence, and of course, it was all a facade. But and in order to keep that facade ongoing, I had to have another drink. I had to have another toke. I had to show up the next day and do it all over again. Um, it's exhausting, but when we're doing it, we don't even know how exhausting it is.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, that was resting the belief, though, that not knowing that's what it was, I'm not enough. I need to, when I take alcohol, all of a sudden that disappears, or pot, or whatever drug that I picked up. It would fire that for a while, and I didn't feel it. And all of a sudden, this false self would come out of this drama of this terrible feeling that I had. I was telling you earlier that I had this awful feeling, and I had anxiety most of my life until 6 years ago. It vanished just like that.
Well,
um and the anxiety was I'm not safe. I didn't know that I had trauma, and my body wasn't safe as a kid. So all those things you just said about picking it up for numbing that pain is what it was for. But then, of course, I crossed a line, and I can't touch it now because, well, anyway, we don't need to go into that, but I don't touch it because I don't want it, but also because my body got addicted to it.
right.
Yeah.